What's going on, everyone? Sports back with another video. In this video, I want to briefly go over the Toronto Raptors and whether or not they should be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. I think most Raptor fans would prefer if the Raptors are buyers at the deadline, and I'm one of those fans. I think we're a team that we haven't really been able to get healthy, and when we do, it's for like a game or two, and then someone goes down. It's just been... We just are a team that consistently every year we always get stuck with injuries, and this year it's been the same. And I think the Raptors, what they've proven is to be a very resilient group, and even when they are when they do have some injuries, they're still able to get through it and play really tough. Using last night's game as an example. Against the Chicago Bulls, they played a relatively healthy Bulls team outside of a couple guys. But their big three was there. Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic, they were there. The only really key guy they were missing was Alonzo Ball. I guess you could say Patrick Williams, but he's not really a big contributor. He's not a very good player of that team. He's only played 5 games this year. So I definitely, and of course Alex Caruso, who in my opinion is the most overrated player in the league. I mean, I don't even know what else there is to say about that, but realistically, they hung in with them. They beat a good Hornets team, banged up, same, against the Mavericks, who was a healthy Mavericks team. They were the Raptors, without Gary Trent Jr., they lost by 4 in that game, so they stay very close with a lot of teams. Same with Miami. They beat the Bucks with injuries. They just barely lost to the Suns by 4. They actually swept the Bucks this year. All 3 games we beat them. We beat the Jazz. We beat some really good teams in the NBA. And the Raptors are just like right there. I mean, they're 9th currently in the Eastern Conference. They're a half a game behind the Celtics. And at one point, I know that the last 10, we were 4-6. We hit kind of a tough stretch really after that loss to the Suns. We kind of, we had a little bit of a rough stretch, but we're getting back, and we're proving that we're one of the top teams, 5-6 teams in the East when we're at full health. And I think there's a clear one need with this basketball team, and that's at the center spot. I mean, it was a need last year, and it's a need again this year. So it's going to be an interesting way the Raptors approach that February 10th trade deadline, and I think personally they should be buyers. There aren't a whole lot of guys they can go after around the league, but there's a decent amount. They've apparently there's reports that they've expressed interest in Karis LeVert, Jakob Poeltl. Rashawn Holmes has been available. Same with Yusuf Nurkic and really everybody with Portland. Robert Covington, Norm Powell, CJ McCollum. I'm not saying they're going to go after a guy like CJ McCollum, but a guy like Yusuf Nurkic, who I think even if they don't get at this trade deadline, I still think it's a very realistic possibility that they get him in free agency because he is a unrestricted free agent. A guy like Miles Turner is another guy, but there's a little bit now with his injury. There's some concern there. Maybe you back off a bit with him, but there's pieces that I think the Raptors are looking to move and should move. Goran Dragic, obviously, he's not doing anything. We're paying him to sit on the bench. He's a guy who definitely needs to get out, and if we can get anything for him, I think we do it. And I think if you could package something with him, like a second-round pick or a Chris Boucher, I think you can get really solid piece. Christian Wood has been, he's become available, and it seems like his trade value isn't really, really high. So he's a really good player. He could play the 5. He's a guy who, he could be a good option on a good team. So I think that's that there. But the main thing for the Raptors is getting depth, and this has been a big issue here. We don't have depth right now, and I guess you could say we do, and Nick Nurse just chooses not to use it. We have some decent pieces on that bench, but realistically, when we're at full health, the same 7 players he decides to go with are Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, Chris Boucher, and Precious Achua, and then of course Ken Birch. So that's 8. But we still have guys outside of that. We have Svi Mihalik, we have Yuta Watanabe, we have Delano Banton, we have Malachi Flynn. Justin Champagne's not a terrible player. So we definitely have some guys that are capable of playing. Goran Dragic has only played 5 games, so he doesn't even, we don't even feel like he's on this team. But the Raptors have pieces, and Nurse just doesn't really use them. And I think now with all these injuries, that might be a reason, them playing 40 minutes a night might be a reason of that. Fred VanVleet having this, minor strain injury, it could be because he's playing 42 minutes a night, and that is not going to work in the playoffs. The games get tougher. This is a team that's going to be competing all the way to the end of the year. They're going to be competing for that play-in spot. I think they're going to get it at the very least. I think they'll be like the 7, 8, 9. That'll be the range. But the Raptors definitely need some depth on this team if they want to, make some noise in the playoffs, in which I think they have the pieces to do that, and I think they definitely can. Now, the Raptors also have a very good amount of draft picks moving forward. They have every first-round pick of their own. They have Precious Achua, who I think is a guy they should keep. I don't think they should trade Achua. But an interesting one is Malachi Flynn. And he's not a guy I want to trade, but, now reports come out that his dad's talking up. Nurse doesn't play him much. When he does play, he's a decent player, but if you're the Raptors, you got to think about it this way. He's not going to play a whole lot right now. With Fred VanVleet being the guy at the point guard spot. You have a pretty good guard pool. You got Gary Trent Jr. that the Raptors seem like they want to keep here very long term, which is a very good sign because Gary Trent Jr., he just had back-to-back games with 32 points, so he's a clear stud. So I think Malachi Flynn is, I wouldn't he's not my. I wouldn't be happy that, if we trade him, but at the same time, I think if you can get something in return for him, I don't see why holding on to him is a good idea. I understand his value is low right now, but if if teams call on him and they offer somewhat low, I think you could say, hey, listen, this is what he does when he plays in decent minutes, right? When he plays decent minutes. Like, you can use the game against Charlotte as an example. He played 25 minutes. He had 11 points. He shot the ball well, 4 for 7, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Go back to last year, he had some very good games as a young guy. Preseason, I know it's just preseason, but he still put up, good numbers. So I think the Raptors could definitely hype up Malachi Flynn a bit. It's just so tough right now because the Raptors are in a spot where, can they get Malachi minutes? Yes. But, are they going to be enough minutes for him to really grow as a player? Like, for example, like a guy like Tyrese Halliburton or a Tyrese Maxey type player who they play heavy minutes. Same with Emmanuel Quickly. They play heavy minutes. Whereas Malachi Flynn really wouldn't get that here because we have a all-star point guard in Fred VanVleet. So it's really tough for the Raptors are at, but I definitely think they should be buyers because I feel like they're that one. I feel like they're a center away from really competing. Overall, though, guys, the plans that I think the Raptors should have in the offseason are to go out and, really look to try and trade a guy like Goran Dragic and a guy like a Chris Boucher, who, maybe even package them. Those are guys who, are, Dragic, he's definitely not going to play for us this year, even when we get into the playoffs. And if he, wants to play, Nurse won't play him. And then there's Boucher, who is, an upcoming free agent. So I think, he's a lot older than people think. People probably think he's in his mid-20s. Chris Boucher's, because the injury he had, he seems younger than he is because he doesn't have as much experience. But, at the end of the day, he's going to be turning 30 in about a year. He's 29, so he's not super young. So I think the Raptors should definitely look at trading those two guys and try and get a good center in return, like a Jakob Poeltl or a Rashawn Holmes or a Miles Turner if you can, Yusuf Nurkic, those kind of guys, and then add to your depth because that's gonna be really important. Do that at the very least. A guy like a Gary Harris or And Eric Gordon, the Rockets are looking for a first-round pick for him. Absolutely not. If the Raptors can get him for like 2 seconds, maybe you entertain that. Eric Gordon's a good, experienced guy. So overall, I think the Raptors should, go after that in the offseason, by the trade deadline. And just be buyers, be conservative buyers, meaning don't go out and sell, and trade the whole team to get a guy. But if the right deal presents itself, definitely pull the trigger. And I think Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, that's exactly what they're looking to do. But that's all I got in this video, guys. You guys let me know down below in the comments section your thoughts on the Toronto Raptors. Should they be buyers or sellers at the deadline? Like I said, I think they should be conservative buyers. That's all I got in this video, guys. Leave a like down below on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys, and we'll see you guys all in the next video. Let's go Raptors.